What you got there, Brandi?
Oh, I don't know. I was just hanging out with a few crawdads. No, crawdads isn't that's too far south. I'm stopping on ahead. I've gone too far. I'm in the bayou. Okay.
I love it.
Okay.
Country music, huh? Something I know 0% about. Yeah,
All
I
right.
know.
Well, I know a little bit, but yeah, we'll have a little fun today on our abbreviated version of Folkland here. Gonna cut down a little bit of our
Yeah.
length. Let's see if we can't get down to the old nitty gritty, like the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, which is a country music band.
Yeah, I heard that Jan, first of all, her name's not Jan, but that Jen was doing a one-woman show at the Opry or something. I don't know. Did you hear something about that?
Well, I heard that it was going to conflict with, she made it to the second round of the rodeo.
Oh, man.
So I don't know which one of y'all that she ended up doing today.
I don't know. So you guys tell us if you guys are in Tennessee, if you're down there and you see Jen on the back of that bull, you let us know on Folkland in the comments, okay? I know she said that was something she always wanted to do, was on her bucket list to do.
Yeah.
Well, all
I'm
right,
going to get
Brandi.
us started off today with a rundown.
All right, take it away.
On episode 138 of Nateland, Country Music, our guys line dance their way down to the honky tonks of Music City, USA. Just kidding. They were too busy discussing Andre the Giant's pants and the whereabouts of Walt Disney's Frozen head. But Nate jogged on down to Elvis's birth house while he was in Tupelo last week. Tupelo. Although sadly he did not report the tour guide declaring, Elvis was born in this very room. So sad that he missed out on that part.
Yeah.
Bad News Bates kept a running tally of country music-related plane crashes. Aaron made friends with a very uninhibited new fan this week. And Dusty Slade did not sing the night that the lights went out in Georgia for a third week in a row, even though this episode was titled Country Music. Back to you, Jacy.
I was wondering if he got a little stage fright because Nate was there. And he was like, all right, the big guy's back. I can't just go singing on his show. Oh, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
I know.
I think he didn't want to, he'd already take a...
Yeah.
He did a little dance there. He took a little risk. So. All right.
Yeah.
Well, this is country music, and the guys are in, in Nashville, so it's kind of an appropriate one. It's kind of crazy that they never got to this one before.
I know. It is funny because I feel like they talked about everything. So when I saw the title Country Music, I was like, oh yeah, I don't think they've ever deep dove into that.
Yeah.
But I did want to just what?
I said deep given.
But I did want to shout out some people who commented.
Yeah.
We took a little bit of a break. We're back. ETP, you're always great. A greasy outro devolves in disarray. I feel like singing about it in a bad accent. Yeah, so those accents, we're just doing our best, kind of living our best life, and sometimes we forget that people are listening to this.
Yeah. Obviously, you never know which one of my personalities is going to show up.
That's true. And in my defense, I'm not the best at accents. I do like to try them out. I like to do voices and silliness. But at the end of the day, I guess at nighttime is not my best creative time to try and change my voice.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to chalk it up to that. Jody W. also said says, please, no more British accents. They made her cry. So I'm sorry, Jody. But in a positive note, Jody says The Tangled is her favorite Disney movie, and she loves that song. And she said Audrey Hepburn is her favorite, and Cary Grant. So
it'd be Audrey Hepburn.
Cool. Audrey. I know. I said that, and I realized that I was, I'm not as cultured This is
Yeah.
what I'm learning on Nateland. Listening to Nateland reminds me I'm not cultured. How funny is that? But
Can I
anyway.
just say, one of my favorite parts from this week was when Nate himself had the recollection, or the realization, rather, that he's been learning things from Nateland. And I'm like,
Yes.
just like all of us. You're
Yeah.
somewhere random, and you know a fact that makes no other difference in your life until that
No.
moment. Nateland.
Well, how many times have we said, yeah, I heard it on this podcast. And every time that comes to my mouth, I'm like, oh, I don't want to say it, but I have to say it. Okay, I did learn it from Nateland.
Yeah,
And
it's
everybody
true.
already expects that from me.
Somebody on the Nateland Facebook group this week posed the question, what kind of talk have you picked up from the pod? And
Oh, yes.
I say a little bit of daggum at my house way more than I should lately. Of late, it's been in my vocabulary too much. And I say daggum and some variation of that, something else. Daggum and dagnabbit or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I say, and I've never, because I'm up in the East Coast, Northeast Connecticut, I say neat. That's neat. And
yeah,
my husband has my husband has called me out on it. And he goes, "You've never said that before, but since you've listened to Nate, especially Nateland, you've been saying neat, like, oh, that's neat. Oh, that's neat. You're neat, whatever." And I just say all the time, like, yeah, that's neat. And I'm like, I've never said that before. It's usually like cool or awesome, or because I'm close to Massachusetts, it's wicked. It's wicked cool.
Wicked, yeah.
Yeah.
I picked up the word neat in adulthood myself. It's a fun, sweet, little wholesome word, but I picked it up in adulthood myself. Yeah.
Yeah, so I know. It's very funny.
Our guy Nate has been hitting the big time with all of his promos this week. I am so happy for you, Nate Bargatze.
Yes.
All these interviews you've gotten to do. And
amazing.
And we all enjoyed watching you on James Corden this week. That was
fun.
Let's discuss, Jacy.
Well, I thought, first of all, how amazing Jamie Lee Curtis was. Just so chill. She's such a pro. And she's like, she's so comfortable up there. And to me, Nate looked like a teenager, like on the couch when his parents are like, we need to have a talk with you, sort of thing. And his knee was like bouncing. Like I think he was excited to be there. And when he talked, he's very good about hiding his nervousness or anything like that. If he is nervous when he talks, once he talks, you give him the spotlight. It's that professionalism kicks in where he's like, I know what to do now. And I did like how he was able to talk to, Jamie and let her know that he's a fan. And I thought that was a really cool thing that he got to do. It was a very neat thing that he got to do.
You're right, though. I wondered if he was a little nervous. Maybe his sitting has been more competent in the past. I'm just saying, like a little bit.
Yeah.
But, it's hard to be when Jamie came out there like a firecracker, and it's hard to bounce off that energy because she wasn't a bit intimidated, and she's, you don't know what she's going to say. Yes. To me, it was a perfect example, though, of how Nate he's really one of us. And I felt like you've got this big Hollywood celebrity sitting there, and then you've got one of us. It was just most contrast that I've ever seen, and it's probably because it was Nate. I mean, if it was another comedian, I probably wouldn't have felt it, but I felt like she was so Hollywood! Yes. The way she came out, and she's like, I'm not here to discuss it. That was her bit, and she was being silly and funny. She's truly going to miss James Corden and being on his show. But man, oh man, he's Nate, and he's like, hi, I went to the drive-in and watched your show. I mean, it was just like he's a normal guy, and he alludes to this a lot on Nateland, and I kind of love that about him, honestly.
So my phone needs to be charged, and I can't believe I just did this. Okay, can you just take a minute while I go get a charger? I'm so sorry. I forgot to get a charger.
Actually, while you're doing that, I will talk about a fun little thing here. Something that surprised me this week, folks, on Nateland was that Aaron Weber, our own Aaron Weber, did not bring up the fact that there is a Ken Burns documentary called Country Music. I really expected him to, because he has spoken so highly about the Civil War documentary and the baseball documentary, which I love to death. When the country music documentary was coming on PBS, I did not have any intention of watching it. It was a few years ago, and at that time, my family had we had PBS, and we don't have paid television, so it's just whatever channels you can get through the antenna. And we watch a lot of PBS, and I wasn't really excited about it, but strolled through and left it on. And by midweek, because they played a new episode every week, by midweek, my husband and I are like, oh, the country music show's on again. He is the least country music person I know, my husband, but we really enjoyed that documentary when it aired. And Aaron Weber, I don't know that I've ever directly spoken to you before on Folkland, but I hope that you will give that documentary a watching if you haven't seen it yet. It's very good. It taught me a lot about the origins of country music and very interesting stuff. I learned that mountain music, hillbilly music, rockabilly music, the Negro spirituals that came into, all those things were wrapped up into making country music. And of course, what we know today is bluegrass and folk music as variations of it. But really good stuff on there. You got to check that one out.
Well, thank you for that. I appreciate that information because I do like a good I do like documentaries, and I think I can watch a documentary about anything. I think it's very interesting to learn about the behind the scenes of stuff, how things are made, really where things come
and
from.
The stuff that he puts out is really good. I always enjoy it, and so if I found this available to watch again, I would definitely watch it again. But since we talked about folk music being a variation of country music, I have to say that I myself really enjoy a little James Taylor, even though he's before my time. I think that he's a really talented guy, and I want to bring this back to Nateland in that there is a line in his famous song, Carolina on My Mind, or Carolina in My Mind, rather, and the line goes like this: with a holy host of others standing round me, still I'm on the dark side of the moon. And the background with that is that he was in Europe and he was going to record an album under the Beatles label. It was a big deal. It was the first one, I think, that they were going to record outside of the Beatles. So it was a big deal. But while he was there, he got homesick. And he was, I can't remember what country he was in, but he'd been there for the day and he missed the ferry, and it was the last ferry out. And so he and a friend were sitting at this cafe, and while they were there, they just had to sleep in a chair at this outdoor cafe, and they missed the ferry and they couldn't get another until morning. And he grew very, very homesick, thinking about home. And he's thinking about, the holy host around him was the people. He's surrounded by some really great, amazing people, musicians. He's living his dream by getting to record. But yet, deep inside of him, as he's asleep in the middle of the night or trying to sleep in a chair, sitting up, he's thinking about home in Carolina. So he felt it was like being on the dark side of the moon to him because he was so far away from home. So that's where that came from. And get this, Nateland folks, are you ready? It predates the Pink Floyd album. That line does. So that was talking about Nateland this week, and we know that the phrase came before Pink Floyd. So that's my James Taylor tidbit for this week. Also, I got one more thing.
I appreciate that. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I'm just jabber-jawing up.
No, it's okay.
My other thing I want to talk about is the queen of country music is Dolly. Okay, I don't know what Wikipedia page you were reading off of, but
yeah,
gentlemen, there's very little that I have to put you in your place on Nateland. But this week, I feel that Dolly did not get her due. I feel like she's done a lot for the great state of Tennessee, which you all live in. And maybe
Yeah.
maybe it's like you wake up every day and you've got a beautiful mountain view or something and you take it for granted. Maybe that's what this was with Dolly. But listen to me. She didn't get her time on this country music episode. And I was not okay with that. I just want you to know that is a living legend. She's been in this industry. Yeah. She is 77, I think, years old, something like that.
Insane.
Hey, Alexa, how old is Dolly Parton? 77, just turned it in January. So she's been going since she was a teenager. The best story songs there are, and you said her name. Her birth house is probably not there anymore. You're right, Brian. Anyway, I just feel like
I know.
I feel like there was a little lack of love there coming from you guys there in Tennessee, or y'all, I guess I should say. I needed a little bit more homage for Dolly, and that's why Garth is brooding back here. He's kind of mad about it too. Yeah.
Well, I agree, and you know what's funny is that she's a household name, and it's not just country music fans that know her. And
she's amazing.
I think I'm pretty sure on those pieces of paper that they had, I'm sure Brian had a spot for her. I'm sure, but I think it's how everything kind of gets navigated and the conversation goes. But I do.
Best about you, Brian. I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. You probably had a good section for Dolly. You're the one who brought up that her birth home in Sevierville would be worth visiting. So I'll give you points for that breakfast.
Yeah, and I think that there's a lot. First of all, a lot of the names that they said, I know nothing. I'm up here in the north, and you know how the north and south are. They're very different, like night and day. But you know, there were some names, obviously, like Garth Brooks and Shania Twain. They're very mainstream in the 90s for me, my generation. I was a kid in the 80s, 90s, so I understand, you know, that it's a whole different world, and I love that country music is its own thing. I think that's what Aaron was trying to say about, you know, a lot of purists out there who, if there's an artist, a lot of country fans will be very quick to say that's not country music and that is country music. I understand that. I think that can be with a lot of genres. But I understand what he's saying, that there's like this pride with country music, and I think that's okay. I think that's totally okay.
Well, I mean, I think Brian said that, you know, Elvis, they were not crazy about him because he was more rock and roll, and they called it rockabilly, the crossover there. But it was, you know, but that's with anything. It's with anything with change, people. And, you know, rightfully so in some respects. We do need to grow and adapt to things, though, for sure. There's some people holding us back in certain things, but anyway. I don't listen to country music. I don't listen to it now. I did for a pinch back in the 90s when it was super popular. And then God said to me, when I didn't even know it, inside of my head, he's like, stop listening to country music before you meet your husband, because I'm creating you to be the perfect woman for him. And he's not going to like that. I didn't know that until later, but in his infinite wisdom, that's what he did.
That's what it was. Yeah. I think it's really cool. The whole history that Brian said about like the Ryman Opryland. He was talking about the history of that, the circle and standing on it, you know, Opryland theme park. I think that's what it's called, right? I don't know. I thought that was really, really cool. And how we never know how these names come to be. Sometimes I think about that with street names when I'm driving down the street, and I'm like, why do they call that street that? Because that doesn't, it's so silly, or, you know, it's weird. But I liked his little like deep dive into that.
I did see there's a little Johnny Cash down in Nashville. There's a little Johnny Cash museum. I think that'd be kind of neat to go see.
That's fun.
Yeah. You know, Johnny Cash is one that I do kind of like a little bit. He had a lot of rough in there, but hey, he came to some good redemption at the end of his life. It's a really beautiful story. So,
yeah, I know. What did they say? What was it that they said about him on the podcast?
Well,
that he got pulled over, right?
No, my microphone doesn't work, and now we don't have lights either.
Oh.
It's like, not his brightest moment. Can we talk about something else amazing that Johnny did?
That is true. How did I forget that? I know.
He inspired Waylon Jennings. Come on now, let's.
But here's the point: when people say how crazy, like, some artists are now, or they don't have respect like artists did back in the day. There was no rules, like Nate likes to say. Nate likes to always say everything was a free for all. So there was a lot of stuff they did that artists don't do now, and I think the wild moments are just indifferent. It's just different kind of wild. It's a different kind of wild.
One more thing I'll say about this episode. They talked about that Miss Rachel show, and I'm like, oh, you just wait for 5 seconds, Dusty and Brian, because what's coming next is called Bluey. You haven't made it to that phase yet, but it's awesome.
I know.
And on that one, we will say there's an episode, and they say it was the 80s. Sorry, ETP. That was one more accent that you didn't want to do. I think
very cute.
We've got a few breakfast bites to wrap us up, and we're going to probably call it a day. Let's make this little bite-sized Folkland complete.
Yeah, so I was thinking about, well, first of all, when Brian said that his friends got mugged, and I was trying to follow that story, and then, I mean, do you remember what he was saying, or what?
On the highway, it had something to do. There was a highway and Tracy Lawrence and a gun.
Yes, right, right. But anyways, it just seems so funny to me that it's like he had a story to go along with that. Also, Brian meeting the mayor of Dustytown. Shout out Philip Blank.
Yes.
He does Dustytown on Instagram. So if you're on Instagram, follow Folkland, of course, on Instagram. Folkland _podcast, but also follow Dustytown on Instagram. He's very funny. A lot of dustified memes, and I love it. And he got to meet Brian this past week, which is a weekend, which was awesome. And so the names that I've heard Brian called this week in the comments, this was on YouTube, and also the Facebook group, was Babble. Somebody called him Babble. Another person called him Birdbath, Broomstick, and Banjo Worried Bates. So that's what I have. I think Brian was definitely in his element. I think he felt good about sharing some things that he had more experience about, and yeah, I think this was a very Brian heavy episode, and I approve. Batesville approved. Good job, Brian. Good job, Brian.
Goodbye, folks.
All right, so follow us on Folkland, on YouTube. Put it in the comments, your favorite country music star, your favorite country music song, and then follow us again on Instagram if you haven't, Folkland _podcast, and we will see you again next week. Goodbye, folks.
Jacy, Dolly's got a song, and she sings about growing up in the mountains of Tennessee. You said you didn't know a lot about country music. It's called My Tennessee Mountain Home. And I was thinking about how we got us a little old show called Folkland. And I thought I'd sing it a little like Dolly. In this Tennessee inspired podcast, we might not be as funny, but at least we try.
I love that. That's great. Hey, sounds like it hits me.
Yeah. Also, okay, I'm gonna teach you. Dusty brought this song up.
Okay.
Give me a little clap. May the circle be unbroken, by and by, Lord, by and by. Oh, I should have looked up the word, something about that mansion in the sky.
Jen is on a rodeo right now.
Yeah.
Okay. I have no idea. I don't know, but Garth is looking at me.
Yeah, Jen and Garth, one thing about both of them? They got friends in low places. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That's amazing. Well, I appreciate this country music lesson. I'm gonna have to go practice.
All right. I expect you to
I'm out of
know
practice.
the origins behind at least 3 Dolly songs by the next time we meet.
Okay. I'm worried. I will try.